Hello, happiness abounders, and welcome back. So, yesterday we spoke all about our inability to say no, not because we're a people pleaser, but because we don't have organization and full understanding of expectations. So, that's what I want to talk about today, specifically the organization aspect. If you've been tuning into every episode along this self care theme month, you may be fully aware that there's always an episode, whether it's the third or the fourth of the week, that talks about calendaring. That's actually very purposeful. That's something I've done on purpose so that we can understand that no matter what area of self care, whether physical, emotional, social, intellectual, or spiritual, we need to have time set aside on our calendar to make sure that we are able to dedicate time to self care. And in terms of social self care, that calendaring is great for that organizational aspect as well. So, get organized on your calendar, right? It seems pretty simple, but it's so surprising. And think really hard if this is you. It's surprising how many people don't really have a calendar. Or if they do, they hardly ever look at it. They don't utilize it for dates and important things. It's just always held up in their brain. Now, if you've listened to other episodes of the podcast that aren't self-care related, you also know I am a big pusher on getting things out on paper and out of your head. Because it's just one more thing to have to remember, one more thing to try to fit into your life and into your brain and your mental and emotional capacities when it's just easily put onto a calendar. Right? So I'm all about getting out of our own heads with that kind of stuff, putting it in a system that really allows us to be organized. Now, many of you may know, and of course I can only use my own life as examples, but many of you may know that I have a full-time job where I am a director and I oversee a couple of teams and lots of projects. Without some form of organization, I wouldn't be able to do my job, right? And I think we all have some level. But if I want to really dive into social self-care, not work, not, this is the day we need to take the dog to the groomers, this is the day, big projects going out this day, instead of like normal life stuff, which we may or may not have on our calendar, if you don't start, right, it's a great way to get it out of your head, feel better about your life, and be organized. And then the only thing you have to do is remember to look at the alerts on your phone or go check the calendar if you have a hard copy of one wherever you put it, right? But in terms of social self-care, this is a great way to fully engage in knowing your expectations, right? Because someone may say, hey, you want to go get coffee on Sunday? And you're like, yeah, I'd love to get coffee on Sunday. And Sunday comes around and you're like, oh man, I have coffee with this person at 10, and then I have lunch with this person at 11, and then I've promised I'd go do this at 3. That's a jam-packed day, and I actually need to clean the house, do laundry, do the dishes, and get ready for Monday. That's a lot. And you're having coffee with one person at 10. You know those meetings and those like get-togethers never last like a half hour. They're like an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you have lunch with someone at 11? That's tough, right? So that's that saying yes without full understanding of the expectations of your time. So you can have that and that level of organization by utilizing your calendar and calendaring in specific time. Now, I personally take it one step further. I have my calendar and I've actually synced all my other calendars to one and color coordinated it. This is next level. I'm not saying you have to do this, but I want to share what I do, so maybe it will spark some ideas for you. So I have 3 different calendars, well, 4 different calendars. I have my work calendar, my freelance calendar, my Happiness Abound mentoring and other things calendar, and then I have my personal calendar. And I have it all color coordinated. So if I have time blocked out on a day to be able to do my freelance work, or because I'm meeting with someone for freelance, it's a certain color, but it's all on the same calendar. If I have work stuff, that's usually from the 9 to 5, and that's pretty well blocked out, but I can see that on my calendar and go, oh, if somebody wanted to meet with me for freelance stuff at 4:30, I can't do that because I have a meeting for work at that time. Then, of course, my Happiness Abound, my mentoring, I always have my clients scheduled in. This is on their calendars as well, but it's a great way for me to understand, okay, I need to be home by this time so that I can have a Zoom call with this person who's in Australia. Or I need to be here at this time so we can have our in-person meeting and mentoring session. So it's great for understanding that and making sure I don't overbook on my clients. Then on my personal one, it's all the fun stuff, right? It is, hey, we should go get coffee on Sunday. Great, let me double check. Ooh, actually, things are looking a little rough for me this Sunday. What if I did it this day instead? Now, the other side piece of this is I get asked a lot if I'm available to be interviewed on other people's podcasts. Side note, fun side note, if you go to happinessabound.com/featured on, or scroll all the way to the bottom in the bottom nav, there's a section that says featured on. If you click on that, you can actually see all of the podcasts I've been featured on. And if you click on the picture, it'll take you to a link to listen to those episodes. So if you ever wanted to hear what it's like, not just me talking, then go ahead and check that out too. But so that said, I have people ask me all the time if I can be free to be interviewed on their podcast. Now, if I was in that mode of not knowing expectations and not being organized, of course I'd say yes. And then I'd be overbooked and I'd be letting those people down. I'd be letting myself down. I would be rushing from one thing to the other. Whereas instead, I have a calendar and I can say, actually, this Sunday won't work for me, or this Saturday won't work for me, or this Monday at 2 won't work for me. What if we did it this day instead? I have a pretty big block, and so I'm free from between time A and time B and can do it any time between then. Give them options. But my organization helps me from saying yes and then being essentially on the run, right? Trying to figure out why I'm double booked, how I can organize this, and really just messing things up all the way around. So social self-care through organization expectation setting can also be a form of just normal self-care, right? Emotional self-care, intellectual self-care as well, by having this organization, this calendaring, and these expectation settings. So this may be like old hat for you if you've been listening to other episodes, because like I said, I do mention calendaring and being organized in your self-care pretty regularly. But in this case, it's not necessarily put it in the calendar, it doesn't happen. It should be, right? Make sure things are in the calendar so you do go, but it's also more in that space to help you be organized, to help you set those expectations with others so that you can say no now to say yes later. Podcast example, I can say no to someone asking my availability tomorrow, but I can say yes if they are able to do it this weekend because I have a block this weekend, or whatever it may be. So I hope this episode resonates with you. I know it may be old hat, but sometimes it's worth repeating and remembering these simple things to increase our happiness, because really, getting it out of our head, putting it on paper, and being organized in that way can make such a difference to our emotional and mental well-being, which in turn can make such a difference to our happiness and our self-care. So with that said, I'm going to leave you with this today, and I hope that it resonates. I hope that you already have a system like this in place, and if you don't, I hope that you'll thoroughly explore the idea and try it for yourself to see the difference it can make in your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, and your social well-being. So have a wonderful day. Try this out, get organized, use that calendar, and above everything else, remember, you are capable of happiness abound.